You played defensive end professionally for the NFL New York Jets and at the collegiate level for The Ohio State University. Sports can teach us a lot about ourselves and how to overcome challenges. What are some of the life lessons football has taught you about mental well-being and resilience?
There's definitely a higher level of intensity and drive, and there's a larger emphasis on resilience in players. You've got to. There's a lot to overcome all the time, and so you're training yourself to do that constantly. I think the game has transitioned a lot now, where there is a focus on mental health for players to not fall into the trap of kind of isolating and thinking that you can overcome everything. So in years past, that was kind of the thought process that you should be able to do just about anything and overcome anything on your own. I think the reality of that is not the case, and I think that's why you've seen kind of a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who played professional or high-level collegiate sports sometimes really struggle with either the transition out of sports or just general principles in life, where they believe that and think that they are the only ones that can solve those problems that are happening in their life, and so they attack it that way instead of sometimes reaching out for the help that you need. You are taught a lot of resiliency and coping mechanisms, and and overcoming obstacles and all of those things, working together as a team. And it's good to see kind of now that the emphasis has switched a little bit to recognizing when you can't do those things and asking for help, and especially in the mental health world.
Transitions in life can be difficult. What was your experience transitioning out of professional football, and what advice would you give to others making big transitions in their lives?
I think this is a real issue, especially in high-level collegiate sports and professional sports, because you've spent a good portion of your life. When most athletes' careers end in their mid to late 20s, sometimes in their early 20s. By that point, you've probably spent anywhere from 8 to 15 to 17 years really doing one thing and focusing on that one thing your whole life. Your sport is your life. When you play in college, like, it's year-round training, you're focused on that. The professional level, you're training year-round, you're focused on that. And then all of a sudden that comes to an end, and you've got to really find a new purpose and a new direction to go in life. And that's really hard for someone because it's most of the time it's not a choice you're making. You would like to keep doing what you're doing, but you're going to get released or your career is going to be over, and then you're being forced into a situation where you don't really want to be in, and you don't know what to do next. So I think there's an emphasis currently on preparation for that time when it comes. I know at Ohio State they do a thing called Real Life Wednesdays, where they talk about what your career is going to be, what that path is going to look like after sports. I know the NFL does some training as well with their rookie symposiums, but yeah, making that transition, and not only that, but you've got guys who you're put on a pedestal when you play collegiate sports, and you have that aura about you, and especially in towns like Columbus or Tuscaloosa or those places, and then all of a sudden that goes away. And so that's really hard for some guys to deal with as well. So, would really look to see, and hopefully here in the future, that there's going to be a lot more coaching and resources about transitioning athletes out of their sports and into kind of real life.
Just like a good defense playing on the field, mantherapy.org equips men with a plan to get and stay mentally strong. What aspects of mantherapy.org would you recommend to men, and why?
One of the really things that kind of struck me about mantherapy.org is the relatability and how guys can go on the site and look and see that there are other people experiencing the same things that they are. I think that one of the things that I found throughout this journey is it's always helpful to know that someone else is going through the same thing you are. So when the testimonials are there, that can break down a barrier for a lot of guys, that they're not the only one feeling that way, and that there's other people out there, and that maybe reaching out to a friend and talking, or then going to see a therapist if it gets to that point is something that is not uncommon, and that a lot of guys are doing nowadays, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. So I think that just showing the accessibility and the relatability for mental health issues across a vast array of, workforces, lifestyles, all those things, and a lot of different the symptoms that people are experiencing. Just really helps guys relate and break down the barriers.